Good morning and welcome to Taba, Tell All By All. Today we welcome Eddie Towler, who is a founder of Iron Duke Music Festival. Eddie grew up in Bradford that went on to shape a young man who served both in the British Army and the police force. He's quite the sportsman is Eddie, particular love for boxing and endurance sports, which we will touch a bit on later. Eddie, welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning.
Not a problem, Eddie, not a problem. What I would like to do is take it right back to the very beginning, growing up in Bradford, and how that was, and how it's taken you to the man you are today through the British Army, the police force, fitting in a lot of boxing in that time, and getting some endurance events in as well, which is no mean feat, and ultimately coming to the Iron Duke Music Festival, which is for the so would you like to start, Eddie, where you grew up and how it all began, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name's Eddie Towler. I was brought up, some people say dragged up, but I was brought up in Wyke, which is just a small village on the outskirts of Bradford. I was brought up on a council estate, like many of people who was in the army. My mum and dad, my dad was from Bradford, Tony Towler. You could hear him in any pub before you actually got in the pub, but he was a good lad, and yeah, and a bit of a character. My mum was one of 7 in her family. They came across from Southern Ireland, from County Cork, to set up in Bradford in the milling industry. Back in the late, I think, 50s. And I was born in 1967, so that makes me 55 now. So my upbringing was a great one, actually. You don't see the depravity which was around me at the time. All you saw was a great community spirit. We all got on with each other. All the doors and each houses were open, and we next door neighbour was either an auntie or a grandma, and yeah, we had a ball. All my friends growing up through school, I was all right. I wasn't academic, I would say, but I was. My mum and dad brought me up to respect people, so I was pretty quiet in school, and I was bright enough. But I think I enjoyed me time. It was at Delphil, which, like I said, is in Wyke, and it was good times.
I think what you say there, Eddie, about growing up in a council estate, I'm the same myself, mate, and it's the sense of community makes you sort of not see the poverty that goes on round about you. You'd never really notice it, and of when growing up in them sort of estates as well, like you say, the doors are always open and everyone knows each other as well. If I can just ask you a question on when your mother came across from Southern Ireland, did she come across as a family, or did she come across herself, and which would have meant
the whole family came across, and they all settled in Bradford. You say Bradford, we're a T as well if you come from Bradford. You don't say Bradford. They all settled there, and that's where my mum met my father on a bus, I believe, and he was a bit of a cheeky chappy, and he had the cornflake sort of like hair, swept back, a bit like Elvis look. And I think they looked at each other, and that was that. They brought me up. They were both in the mill trade to start off with. My dad then went on to a number of jobs, but he was at Allied Colloids, which was a chemical factory. Hard workers, both of them. I've got a brother as well, who was actually 2 years. He's 2 years younger to me, to the day, Nigel. Tall, about 6 foot tall, skinny as a rake, Bit like I mean, I was skinny as a rake at that time. Yeah, we was yeah, but now I'm 55. I'm starting to put a little bit on now. It's just sort of like creeping in. But yeah, it was good. We had good times there. Really enjoyed it. That's when remember walking past and this is where the boxing came in initially. I was walking past a local social club, and some lads were coming out with boxing gloves, and I was intrigued, so I went inside, started to speak. Spoke to the coach there, a guy called Rick, and before I know it, I was then joining the club and learning to box as a young, probably about 11-year-old at the time, which actually really still quite some good characteristics, discipline, fitness, that sort of thing, that then brought me on to going on to becoming a member of the armed forces, and it made me stay out of trouble as well. Yeah. Because them days, you know, you sort of like you don't mean to get in trouble, but you just sort of go along with your mates, and some of them took a different path to me, and went a bit wayward. But fortunately for me, together with the direction and support my mum and dad, and the boxing, we sort of like cracked on, and I tender age, I think about 12, I became Bradford champion. My mum and dad used to come and see me box everywhere. I remember once we boxed at a local working men's club, at Lowmore Working Men's Club, which became a social sort of meeting place for my mum and dad quite often on a Saturday and a Friday and Sunday. I remember we had what was his name? I'm trying to remember his name. Boxer, well-known boxer, Johnny. He'll come back to me.
Johnny Nelson.
Johnny Nelson, that's the one. He were there actually, and yeah, he handed me my trophy for best boxer of the night. I remember it yet well. Another time actually, Rick took us down to Brendan Lawler's gym in London, and I met Alan Minter. I met when I was down there. It was his gym. I remember, and at that time I didn't really know who these people were. Alan Minter. Yeah. What a great boxer he was in his time. So
I think that's how a lot of kids get into boxing, isn't it? They see people walking out with their bags and stuff like that, and they think, oh, I'm going to have a look. And then they kind of get the bug for it, really, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I was always into fitness, so I was never I was in the football team, and I was all right. I was always a bit of a runner. I've got great lungs, but because I was skinny and quite athletic, it just sort of lended itself well for well, especially boxing. Because boxing, you've got to have a lot of stamina. Can't even say the word. Which I did. So yeah, like I said, my upbringing was superb. We had I had a great circle of friends, but in 1982, the Falklands War kicked in, and I'd always been intrigued by becoming a soldier. It was something that was even when I was 5, 6, 7. We used to go out and play soldiers in the woods and all that sort of thing, and I really enjoyed that. And the play acting, so I watched the Falklands War, and that then I really then wanted to become a soldier. So I went down to Bradford with my dad. Went into the careers office, and I remember my dad told me to make sure that I ironed. It was my school uniform, so he said, make sure you iron it, and he made me iron it because I was going to become a soldier. So I remember ironing my shirt, and in them days I only had one shirt, one set of trousers, threadbare, but they were always clean, even though they were about 3 or 4 years old. And I remember going down to the careers office, and I went in, and I stood there like as if as smart as I could, and the sergeant behind the desk, he looked me up and down, and he went, "Tramlines!" So, no idea what he meant. And then I look. He says, "Look at them on your shirt." So I looked at my shirt, and I'd got 2 tram lines down my shirt, which I'd ironed myself. And I thought I looked smart as a carrot, but he sort of like put me in my place, but then give me a wry smile as he looked at my dad and give him a little bit of a wink, and he said, "Sit yourself down, son. Let's see what we can do for you." And that was it. At 16, I joined. Initially, I joined the Yorkshire Regiment, the PWO, Prince of Wales Own, as it was then. That was the regiment from Bradford, and I went to IGLB, the Infantry Student Leaders Battalion, down in Shorncliffe at the tender age of 16, which is some feat really. When you sort of like when I think back to it, you got your travel warrant. And I've never been out of Yorkshire, other than occasionally gone on a holiday with my mum and dad to places like Bridlington. But other than that, I've never ventured down anywhere further south than Sheffield or anywhere like that. So my mum and dad waved me off at and Nigel waved me off at Bradford train station, and off I went. And it was quite daunting, because I actually had to change in London. So you got off at Victoria, and then you had to go on the tube for the first time. And then thousands of people. I was pretty scared, I would say. But I remember the train going down to Shorncliffe, and I'm sat there, and I was white as a ghost really. I'd got my school uniform still, because that's the only thing I had, and I had one of my dad's ties. It was a big kipper tie as well, and off I went there, and I started looking around the carriage and the train, and you could see it was obvious, but at the time it wasn't. But there was 5 or 6 other lads staring out the window, sweating and looking pretty similar to me, scared stiff. So actually, they were going to the same place as me. And at 16, I spent a year there actually at IGLB, and that's really where I then became a disciplined professional young man. Even at that age, our training team had 3 instructors from the paras. They'd all been in the Falklands. There's a book called "Don't Cry for Me, Sergeant Major," which is about the Falklands, and that couple of the instructors are in that book actually. And my platoon commander at the time was a guy called Guy Wallace, about 6'6". Well, he looked like 6'6" to a 16-year-old lad, built like the side of a door. And what a guy he was. Just a nice proper nice but firm but fair platoon commander he was. And he was definitely a commander, a leader, and he led from the front. He showed us everything, how to do things, and everybody had a massive lot of respect for him. It was great.
I don't think anybody will ever appreciate, Eddie, that that train journey from your local area down to London through the tube, moving on to like infantry training, and essentially making you turn you from a civilian to a soldier and becoming a man before you're turning 18. I've done a similar journey for sort of my area down to London, and like you say, going through the tube. If you've never done it before, it's very daunting. You've got people sleeping rough and stuff like that, and it's stuff that I'd never seen. So I sort of get where you're coming through there, mate. It's a daunting thing, especially for a 16-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Not yet a man, you know what I mean.
No, and when you get there, when you get off the train, and I don't. It's probably different now, but you know, I remember getting off the train at Folkestone, and there was two of the instructors there, and they were in the number twos. They had a board, and they were ticking you off. And then, if you remember the white elephants, the coaches, which the white coaches, single story coaches, there were about 3 of them waiting for the troops, and you know, it took a lot of balls, to be fair, you know, them first steps, because you're you know, we're only 16. I'm at the other side of the country, somewhere I've never been before. You know, I'm hundreds of miles away. But you know, looking back, it was one of the best things I ever did.
Being it's a sort of top-heavy para there, do you never fancy going down that route? Or was that a thought at any point? Did they try and course you into that, or were you set on where you were going?
No, I could have transferred in that lot, but at that point, I never thought I was good enough for the Paris. I didn't think I was fit enough. So it was something that I never sort of thought about, really. You know, looking back now, I probably, you know, I think I would have been fit enough. I know I would have been. I was, you know, I was one of the fittest I was one of the fittest in my battalion when I went to battalion. So yeah, I was fit enough. Yeah, but at that time, I also realised that it was made up of, the Paras were made up of anybody throughout the UK, whereas the regiment that I eventually went to was all from Yorkshire. So it sort of lended itself. At 16, I thought, well, I wanted that comfort blanket maybe of people around me that actually, you know, that they lived and they grew up in the same area as me, really. It was while I was there, though, my platoon commander was a guy called Ian Metcalf. He was in the 1st Battalion Duke of Wellington's regiment at that time. Well, he's retired now, but yeah, he was, and he saw something in me during my time at IGLB, and he wanted me to join the Dukes. Now the Dukes are a rugby team. Now I could be a rugby coach because I was about 6 stone wet through at the time, but I couldn't play rugby. That's one thing I couldn't play. But while I was there at IGLB, I joined the IGLB's boxing team. That all came about after you've seen it on television. You see it like with para training. They do milling. Well, they did milling at IGLB. So it was at that point that I was quickly singled out as being a good boxer at that time, and then so I then went on to box in the junior leaders championships. I was fortunate to become the Army junior boxing champion at that time. So yeah, so did that, and I found actually, you know, if you were good at sport within the Army, you ended up like near enough sometimes a professional athlete. You always used to get good food, nutrition, sort of like diet. All your dietary needs were taken. You also you ended up in tracksuit for months. You were as fit as a fiddle. You was training all day, every day, I found that continued when I went on to the main battalion then. So yeah, I left IGLB in 85 after joining in 84, and then I joined the battalion, who were away in Belize actually, but I joined rear party. They were at Kiwi Barracks in Bulford, if anybody knows it. You know Kiwi Barracks? Well, in Salisbury. Yeah. The thing about any and this rings true majority of places, when you go to barracks and it says Kiwi or something similar, it tends to mean that there is a massive hill pretty close to that unit, and it just lends itself to, right, you're going to get beasted up that hill, and the whole battalion gets beasted up the nearest hill close to that battalion, and where they are, and that was it, the Kiwi Hill. That was close to it. But yeah, I joined the battalion when they were in Belize, and I was on rear party then for about 6 weeks, and I got to know the rear party at that time, which was good really, because I sort of like, you're moving into the man's army then. I'm still only 17 at that time, so I'm still a young lad. And again, you hear all these stories that you're going into a regiment with area 25-year-old blokes, and you are scared again. You get that butterflies what you got when you first joined. When I first joined the intake at IGLB and getting off that train, I still have them feelings when I joined the battalion.
See when you got to battalion, Eddie, obviously you can settle in a bit, can't you? When everybody's deployed, you sort of you get to know the people there, and then you become sort of your own man. And then when the regiment come back, how was that? Because obviously there was hundreds of people that you wouldn't have known at that point.
Yeah, scary. But hopefully my personality had come across, and my keenness came across with the guys that were already on rear party. So as soon as the battalion came back, these some of old sweats, they could, so they'd already got a measure of me, so they could straight away, they sort of started speaking to the guys when they came back, so which did help. But I didn't know that was going on at the time, but I was it was quite scary when they all came back, and there's hundreds of them. It's a case of, and everybody knows it, you keep your head down, you say nothing, and you say, the only thing you do say is say yes, and you just get on with doing your best, and to be the best person you can be at that time, really. Not be cocky, just do the best you can do, be as professional as you can do, make sure your kit's sorted, make sure everything that you could do you can do, you do to the best of your ability. And that's all I did, really. And just before you know it, a lot, then you start getting taken on board with the team, the platoon, and then you start getting in with them a bit more. It takes a while, because it's like anywhere. It's like any team. It doesn't really mean if you're in the army, or like when I went on to the police, or any sort of group of people. Everybody's wary of you people when you first come into that group. So you just gotta, you just gotta keep your head down and keep putting one foot in front of the other, so to speak.
Did your reputation as a bit of a sportsman come across from the junior leaders across to the battalion?
Nah, I didn't want to. I thought I'd look cocky if I did that, and if I said I were a boxer, straight away, you know,
You almost put a target on yourself, don't you? Because everybody's
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
this guy think he is, and there we
Absolutely.
go.
No, you never bothered, never did that. You know, I just quite literally just kept my head down, didn't say anything really. One of my mates actually, is he joined the battalion just a couple of months after, right? And he's called Quirky, Neil Quirk, and he won't mind me telling you this story because he actually followed me into the police force, and I served with him there. And he also then became he was one of my partners when we became undercover officers in police. And he turned up to battalion. Neil did. He's quite a little stocky lad, and he was 17-year-old, and he was, I think, he was junior lead, not junior lead, he was junior soldier, I think. So when he turned up, he looked like Rambo. He'd got new webbing, got all these new. He got Paris smocks. He had so much kit, it was untrue. Yeah, he looked like Tackleberry off of you know. It was unbelievable, and he turned up, and straight away the lads just took the piss out of him, and he straight away he says flash bastard. So I don't know if you can swear on here, but that's what they said. And before you know it, his nickname became Flash, and to this day he's known as Flash. I mean, he's same age as me now, and yeah, he's retired. He's a retired police officer now, and you know, he's known as Flash still within the battalion, which is quite funny. So yeah.
The problem with a nickname you pick up in battalion or regiments, they stick. They don't go away, do they?
Yeah.
So how long did you serve in the army for then, Eddie?
I served 12 years. So we while I was in Kiwi, we went off to Canada and Kenya. We did tours there, which were pretty awesome, especially for a young lad, never been abroad before, and it was an eye opener for many reasons. Really, it's like going to Kenya and seeing the depravity what was there. I've never seen it anywhere else, and it was hard to sort of like stomach, really, actually, when we were there. But you know, that's where I sort of like I got my spurs, so to speak, where, you know, Dance to the Flaming Arseholes and all them sort of games around a fire in the middle of the desert. Yeah, drink until you can't, you know, till you fall over, and yeah, it was a grand time, actually. I really enjoyed both Canada and Kenya. And then after that, then we went to we got posted to Northern Ireland, 87, 89 tour. We were the Rulemont Battalion, so we were based at just outside Belfast at Palace Barracks. So yeah, so that was luckily we didn't lose any guys. So unfortunately, we did lose somebody. Unfortunately, due to it was an ND in the guard room, unfortunately. But we didn't lose anybody to a terrorist attack or anything like that. So it was a busy old time, 87, 89. So that's when we had the Gibraltar 3. And then we had Michael Stones chucking the grenades into the Milltown Cemetery. Following that was the funeral of the three. I remember running down the A1 on that day, down the motorway because the motorway overlooks the cemetery. I remember we were our team running down the A1, and we could actually see him chucking the grenades and then running away. And yeah, that was Michael Stone, if you remember.
Yeah.
So that was that. And then it was the time when we had Lockgall, where there were the 7 tried going into the police station in Lockgall, and they had a tractor, and they had some of the SES were aware of it, so they were all in the police station at the time, and the IRA had I think they had somebody in in the bucket of the tractor. They also had a van, transit van, anyway, and they got all taken out. I think it was 7 at that time. We did not just we did rural as well. So we were based at Besbrook as well, Besbrook Mill down on the border, and yeah, it was a busy old time, busy 2 years, but that's what excited me, actually. We'd done all this training. When you joined the army at 16 in 1984, you saw, I get it, you saw the Falklands War, but when you joined the army, it was a time where you could get posted to Cyprus, Belize, all these nice countries, nice places, and it was, Canada, Norway, which I eventually went to, and that was more like the appeal, because it was before Afghanistan and Iraq, all them sort of them times moving forward. It was, it was a case of used to go in. You'll remember this, but you used to start work on a Monday afternoon, and you used to on a Wednesday afternoon was sports afternoon. Friday at dinner time, you finished, and it was like wacky races, trying to get up to Yorkshire as fast as we can for the weekend. And before 4 o'clock, we were all in some pub somewhere in Yorkshire, swinging the lead and the lampshade, telling them of all the great things we've just been up to that week. So yeah, it was completely different sort of army than what it is now.
Yeah, I think the only thing that's not changed is that the timings, mate, they're set in stone. Yeah, Wednesday afternoon sports, Friday
afternoons,
12 o'clock we want to be gone. Beat that M6 traffic, M5, M1, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, was Ireland your last sort of posting with the battalion? Is that
no. So it went on from there. We went to Turnhill, which was really spooky, actually, because the week that we 89 we moved to Turnhill after 2 years in Ireland. If you remember, Turnhill got blown up by the IRA when the Paras were there, and the guards on patrol that night saw somebody running away from one of the blocks, challenged them. They ran away. They got away, but they were very fortunate that they got everybody out of the blocks, and then I think 2 of the blocks or 1 of the blocks went up, and that was 2 months before we moved in. Our rear party our forward party had already moved into Turnhill, which is in Shropshire. So yeah, that was a really weird sort of scenario. And when I came back from there, then I went and did me junior NCOs, and then got promoted, and then I got promoted pretty quickly again then, and before you knew it, I moved to Strensall as an instructor for the new recruits at Strensall. Brilliant time that was stunning. Really enjoyed that. It was great times there. That's met a good friend of mine, a guy called Roy Glendinning, who was from the King's Own Royal Border. He retired as a captain, but all these years later, still friends with him, and he got me into some working and promoting the Army Benevolent Fund, which now I've raised quite a lot of money for, but we'll talk about that in a bit. So from there, then the battalion then went back to back to Bulford again. Because we did AMFL role, which is Norway. So we then became a skiing instructor, learned how to survive in the cold. We did the survival night, where you two nights. One of them where you sleep in a snow cave, which is on the concave side of a slope. You then dig into and create a little cave within it, and you then can go in it, and it keeps at 0 degrees centigrade, even if it's -40 outside. You stay there just in your wet proofs, actually, and that's all you had. And you had a candle. That was one night, and then another night you did one in a snow grave, which is what it says. You basically built a grave, and down the side of the grave you drilled a shelf either side, and then you put blocks on top. So when you were inside, you slept in the shelves either side, 2 of you, and then the cold air it'd float and just sink to the bottom, and again that would stay to 0 degrees. So it was survival, and you could survive it. The only thing is, you'd build the snow cave, and the roof would be just above your head, but it'd sink overnight. So you'd wake up and it'd be touching your nose. If you don't like short or confined spaces, it wasn't nice to be in there. But yeah, so we did that, and we did the old skiing into they cut a hole on a lake, and you had a rope wrapped around you, health and safety. Gone wrong. That's all you had, and then you'd ski into the lake with a bergen on. Then you'd chuck your bergen out, and then you'd use the poles, the baskets at the bottom of the poles, and you'd use them to help yourself out, and drag yourself out of the water. Then you roll yourself in the snow, and that actually then the snow absorbs all the water on your body, and it then falls off, and it dries you out somewhat, not perfectly, but it just obviously dry you out. Again, that's just a survival technique. And then you'd run to the BV, which was a track vehicle, which you use while you're in Norway. You'd run to that as fast as you can to get inside, because the heaters are on, and then warm yourself up. Yeah, still scars you for life then, I tell you. So, but they were good. It was good fun. That was good. So we did that, and then from there, then we then moved to Wheaton at Blackpool.
Yeah,
it was at that point then you get to a point when you're coming up to. I've been in the army 12 years, but a year and a half of that was boy soldier. So it doesn't count for your pension. So you get to a point where you think, right, well, I'm either going to stay and commit myself to be in the army, or you're going to start thinking of other things. I'd got a young family at that point, and I was spending a lot of time away. And like a lot of families, you've got to make that decision whether or not you sacrifice your home life, or you sacrifice the work. And the work was the one that I decided I had to go, because I've got 2 young girls, Vanessa and Rebecca at the time, and I looked at that point for something that was similar lines to the army, i.e. Team, professionalism, sort of like dedication, all good character traits. And I realized that, I thought, let me try become a police officer. I've never thought this day that I'd actually get in. I only had one O level. Today you couldn't get in the police. You've got to have a degree, which I think is absolutely stupid. Personally, I mean, the best bobbies that I ever met was two things that they all had. They had common sense and they could speak to people. If you had them two sort of character traits, you got, you went far within the police. Now you have to have a degree.
Sorry, Eddie, is that for all police? They have to have a degree now?
Yeah. I think that's been the last probably about 4 or 5 years. I think they're actually trying to change that now, because they've realised that. I'm not saying that people with degree haven't got common sense and they can't. They can, but they're missing out. They're missing a trick where I was brought up I was brought up on the council estate. I could speak to anybody on any level, and and that's what you needed. You need that empathy from where you came from, that I could then, when I went on the streets in Blackburn when I first became a bobby, I had the empathy, and I could talk to people and say, look, I've been here. This is where I grew up. A councillor. I remember way back when I was probably 9, and two police officers, and they had the long trench coats in them days, and the tall hats that came on, and there were 2 of them, and I think one must have been like a probationer, and one looked at the older gent, Bobby, turned around to the younger bloke and said, "Welcome to the Bronx." And I had no idea what the Bronx was at the time, so I rang up and asked my mum. My mum said, "Cheeky buggers." So, and she still never told me what it was, but I realised obviously we're talking about this. It was a bit of a hellhole. But they probably couldn't speak to other people like I did, and so I was lucky enough, and this is 1996 now. Lucky enough to get in, and that came through all my past experiences within the army and also growing up, and I was then posted to Blackburn, which is in Lancashire, and the east of Lancashire. And that was my first posting.
That's sort of a great time to be in Blackburn. They had a great football team, didn't they? I think they just won the league the year before.
I think so. Yeah. They did. But I'm a United supporter. So
the pictures at the post that year, didn't they? Even though Liverpool beat them, they just pipped you there. I think that was that year. So I think, see what you're saying there about needing a degree and stuff like that. I mean, clearly not for me to say, but they're missing out on a massive demographic of people, because you lose a sort of street smarts. People may not be that clever in terms of academically, but they can definitely understand the street better than someone who's been to uni for 4 years. And not in all cases, by the way, but
it isn't. But I think you need that mix, that definitely. Like I said, all the best detectives, all the best bobbies. Not all, I'd say, but 80% of them they didn't have degrees. They just could speak to people. And like I said, they were street smart. They went out there and they didn't take yes or no for an answer. They dig in a bit deeper, because they know that 9 times out of 10, when you get told something by somebody, generally, if they're up to no good, they're not telling you the truth, are they? So it's just trying to get into them a little bit more, and understanding, and then being able to speak to other people. Mrs. Miggins round the corner, and going and speaking to her, and it was that's the way to do it. And I was, like I say, I was posted to Blackburn. I ended up on a council estate called Fishmore, which overlooks actually Blackburn Rovers ground. And yeah, again, council estate, very similar to like I was brought up on. Lots of good, 90% of people on estates, council estates, they're all blooming good people, and nice people wanting to do an honest day's work. Unfortunately, it's also a place where you'll get the 10%. It's the 10% that make up with the 90% of the problems on estates. And you know, but it is what it is. It was funny because I got a bit of a reputation. There was, even though I had you had a ballistic vest, stab-proof vest, ballistic one as well. You had a webbing belt on, because obviously you had to carry everything, your handcuffs and your baton. You had your boots on. It weighed quite a lot. I remember I was talking to who actually was a drug dealer at the time, in close to Fishmore. Fishmore had a massive long road, top to bottom, and we were at the bottom of this, and this guy, I was talking to him, and there was some suspicious circs around it. So I said to him, look, you know, I give him the circs that I'm gonna search him. At that point, he started legging it up the hill. Anyway, I was off after him. So he was a fit enough lad. So anyway, about 3/4 of the way up the hill, and there's quite a lot of people watching because it was near 3 o'clock, so I think school's coming out, and he's running up this hill. So my fitness came in, and I ran alongside him and said, when you want to stop, mate, just tell me. And about 100 meters later, he was bent over, blowing through his ass, and then I arrested him. And you could see the remainder of the everybody on the estate, and he got round that. So it was you know, I was it was quite funny that nobody ever decided to run away from me ever again while I was on Fishmore, which was quite funny.
So you mentioned earlier on, that's brilliant, by the way. Nobody running away for you as a copper, that's bizarre. So you mentioned earlier on that you've done a bit of undercover as well.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
So when I left the army, and still while I was when I joined the police, I'm still quite a skinny lad, and I was quite a good probationer at the time. I think I arrested 120 people in my first year for various offences, which was pretty much unheard of. So I was making a bit of a name for myself within Blackburn. So it was at that point, and we had an undercover policing team, and they were just setting up, and somebody from Blackburn high up had approached them and said, you need to go and have a look at this lad, because he's quite, you know, he'd fit the part. He looks like a drug user. Yeah, I could have looked like Brad Pitt, but I looked like a drug user at the time. You know, it's definitely sort of like, you know, he's not just it doesn't just look like it, but he's going to go far. You know, he's got his head screwed on, this lad, and he can speak to people. He's a bit of a thief taker, and while he's been here, very professional in what he's doing. So take a look at him. So I was asked to go on a course, which I did. And so about 4 weeks before the course, I thought, right, what can I do? So I went to the local sort of like second-hand shop, went and got some really garish clothes. I pissed on them, on all my clothes, then put them in a plastic bag, bin liner, put them in the airing cupboard, and left them there to dry. And then I went and got my nose and my eyebrow pierced. I went to, I knew a local hairdresser. I went there and asked, can you give me, I want my hair dyed, but I want it like as if I've done it myself and I haven't done it right. So I had like off yellowy, dark brown sort of hair. I'd grown a little bit of facial hair at the time as well. And I remember walking in for the first day of the course, and I took my clothes out of the bag, and it's the first time I've taken them out in 4 weeks. And dear God, the ammonia when I opened the bag up, honestly, it nearly knocked me over. So I put all this these clothes on, and then I got like, because I thought I'm going to get searched at some point. Somebody might want to search me. So I got some like toffees and some gooey sort of like so jelly beans and that. Like I put them in my pocket. I sort of put them in my mouth and then put them in my pocket. So if anybody went into my pocket, they'd get a sticky gunk at the bottom.
Yeah.
So, and it actually, seriously, when I started doing the UC sort of stuff, that actually did happen a couple of times, and you know, and that sort of saved me bacon really. Because there were certain times I had, well, all the times I had a audio device on me at the time, recording everything that went on. But going back to that, yeah, I remember walking in on the first day to the canteen, and nobody knew what I was there for. So there was all sorts there. There was courses for anything from driving to probationary courses to PACE courses, to all different sort of courses. And they were all there, either suited or booted, or they were in uniform. And then I was there, and I remember getting in the queue, and then I looked around, and I was stood on myself, because people were stood either 10 paces in front of me or 10 paces behind me, because I stunk that much waiting in the queue. So yeah, so yeah, I did the course. It was a 2-week course, and I passed with flying colours. And straight away then, it was only a couple of weeks before I got asked to go on my first job, which was in Blackpool. And if you remember, I talked about Quirky, Flash.
Yeah.
Quirky had joined the police as well, similar time to me, and we both left the Dukes. And he too wanted to be a UC. He wanted to be a UC. The problem with Quirky is he was quite a stocky lad. So he had to have a different persona. I was always the drug user. Quirky was more like somebody on the streets, you know, and he was always dressed like, yeah, we don't call them tramps no more, you know, which is right. But you know, that's the way he dressed, and yeah. And we ended up working together on the first sort of like real job in Lancashire. So I was the first one to be deployed, and it's a difficult thing to do this, because I've got no. You have two different types of UCs. You have level 1 and level 2 UC. So a level 1 UC is somebody who will go and live in the community. They can be living in the community for a year. Police officer might be, and over that time they'll have a legend. They might have a job. They've got a house. They may also be introduced by an informant. An informant might introduce them into a criminal gang. So they have got, in effect, they've got a legend that they can use, whereas a level 2 undercover officer doesn't have any of that. they are quite literally thrown into a town and said, that's your telephone number. That's where that drug dealer lives. What I want you to do is go and ring him up, or alternatively, go knock on his door and try and purchase some drugs without any legend whatsoever. So it's a daunting task, that, and you know, I've been in quite a few sticky situations, but what you tend to do is, and what you try to do is, when you go into that first dealer, if you can get into that first dealer, you then have got a little bit of a legend. You've got you've got something to say. When you move on to the next person, you can turn around and say, I was getting my drugs off of so and so, which, if they want to try and reference that with that drug dealer, they can do. They can and say, go ask him. I go ask him, but I've been told your drugs are better. And then before you know it, then it's like a domino effect. You start at one, and then you can start going around the town. And you don't take one out and then take that drug dealer out, or obviously, you're blown at that time. So you try and get around as many dealers as you can. So on the first job, I think we took out like 26, 27 drug dealers in Blackpool. Yeah, so Quirky joined me at that point. There is a story that I'll tell you now if you want to hear that. It's a story about we had a drug dealer just on the outskirts of Blackpool, and he never came out. He always used to send runners, but we wanted to get face to face with this drug dealer, and so we had to think of a way of getting into that drug dealer. So we came up. We all sat round the table and tried with various methods of drawing out the main man. We decided we'd pretend that we'd done a burglary the night before, and it was them were the days when we had VHS video recorders, and we said, right, I tell you what, if we can get a video recorder from the other property store, which is lost and found property and all that sort of thing, after so long, that then will get sold on at auctions. So so we decided we'll use a video recorder. So we asked if we could get a video recorder from the other property store. They came back with one, and the first one they came back with it had been fingerprint dusted top to bottom from all over it. So we had to quickly send that back. Says, no, that's not that. We can't turn around and say that's been in somebody's house. And then anyway, this sent us another video record and said, right, that might do it. So off we went, and I had a mic on. So I used to have a mic in here. If I were wearing a big jacket, I put it here, because what I'd do is we'd go to a telephone kiosk, a TK as we say. I would be recording at this time. I would say today's day. So this has got to be evidence. So I'd say today's day, who I am, who I'm with, where I'm at. Then I'd say the location of the telephone kiosk. And then I'd within the telephone kiosk also there'd be a little description of exactly where the telephone kiosk and also the telephone number. I'd say what that is, and then I would say I'm now ringing up, and I'd confirm the number that I'm ringing and the name of the person that I'm supposed to be speaking to, the drug dealer. And then I'd put the mic up to me ear, and then I'd put the receiver over. So then I'd record the two-way conversation, and then so. On this day, we rang up the drug dealer, and I put my voice on then. I said, "Hey, mate, you all right? Can you sort us?" And you'd have to go into a bit of theatrical sort of like way of talking, and the way your body, your stance, your body language, all that. And I said, he says, I'll send somebody out. I says, no, mate, I've got a video recorder. We've done a burglary last night. And he went silent for a minute, And then he went, right, come, and he gave us the address. So it was working, all good. So I put the phone down, off we went, and it was quite literally about 100 meters around the corner to the address that he gave us, which we all knew. We got a obs van from the team, because we always had a safety team, which had cocooners. They were all in plain clothes, and they sort of like in cars, the cocoon where we were walking to make sure we were safe. But they also had a obs van watching the address, because they knew that's probably where they're going to send us. So we knocks on the door, and this was me and Flash. Knocks on the door, and all we heard was must have been about 6 or 7 locks on the door. Doors open. This lad, stocky. I was expecting a drug user, but a stocky lad comes to. Oh, he had like a vest on. He looks round, looks at us, and went, "Come on in." So we walks in, closes the door, locks all the door, and says, "Go down the corridor." So we had like a corridor, and there were a room off to the left-hand side. He says, "Go down there, go to the left." So me and Quirky look at each other, we're sort of like, we've just been locked in here. It's not, this could be, we could be getting the, we could be have about 6 or 7 people waiting for us. Actually, there was 6 or 7 people in there. So we walked into this room, and it was like, you remember the old tap rooms where you could smoke in the old in a pub, yeah. And it was just full of smoke. It was, you couldn't, the curtains were drawn closed, and people were sat all the way around on the chairs, but the people on the floor, and they sat with their backs to the floor. And we looked around, and they were all either injecting, or they were all smoking or chasing the dragon, heroin. So what they'd do is they'd have like a piece of silver foil, and they'd have a pipe. And majority of them was just, it'd be a silver foil pipe. They'd put the heroin on the foil, and they'd burn it, and it turns like molten, looks a bit like mercury, and then they'd tip it down, and then it'd run down there at that, and they keep the flame underneath it, and then you'd get a spiral of smoke, which was the pure heroin coming up, and then they'd suck it in. And it's the first time me and Quirky had ever seen this, so it's like, it was just, so the room was full of smoke, which was heroin, and there was a guy on the floor, and he looked like Jockey Wilson. Do you remember Jockey Wilson, the dart player?
Yeah, darts boy.
He looked like him, and he was Scottish, and he had a spoon, and he had in his mouth, he had a syringe, and he had the needle into the spoon, and he was burning underneath it, and then he drew up the heroin into the syringe, and then he gets up, and we're near the door at this time, and he's got the needle pointing towards me and Quirky, Flash, and he's coming towards us, and with a needle pointing to us, and we're like, oh, God's sake. So we stand to one side, and next minute I look to the left, and I sees the dealer, because I've seen the picture of the dealer. So, and he went, what you got, lads? So I says, we did a burglary last night, and we made up an address, not a fictitious address, a real address. And we said, we've done a burglary here. And he says, right, let's see if it works. Now, we didn't check that it worked before we'd come out. And anyway, there was a lead, but there was no plug on the lead. So for the next 10 minutes, there was the drug dealer, the big guy who opened the door, the stocky guy, trying to get, where you can put the wires into to the plug with a plug, a normal plug, and then push it in together, to try and get it to work. But they couldn't get the wire. They couldn't get the wire, because there was. So this guy, stocky guy, pulls out from the back of his trousers a Bowie knife about that long, right? And he starts shaving off the ends of the wires to make the wires longer. So I'm looking at Quirky. We've been here 10 minutes now, and and I'm thinking, I can't do this. My head starts going a bit wuzzy now. Neither me or Quirky smoke either. So that again, when you sat or you're in them sort of situations in a room full of drug users, which they all smoke, and we've got all this heroin floating around. I looked at Quirky. Quirky's fallen onto the settee next to me. He's out of it because he's got he's starting to come under the influence of the heroin. Next minute, I'm like that. I don't know what to do. We're hardened drug users, me and Quirky, at this point. Well, we're acting supposed to be. Next minute, boom, the LED lights come on the VHS recorder. Right. So this guy says, right, yeah, can sort you. So he gives us one bag of brown and one bag of white. The brown being heroin and the white being cocaine for it. So I looks at Quirky, I gets the drugs, and then he says, "Is he all right?" I says, "Yeah. He's not feeling himself. He's just a bit ill. He'll be fine." So I picked Quirky up, and we get out of there. So we then have to walk to go to get picked up. And we've been in at least 15, 16 minutes in this room, and the safety car is at a safe location, and we've got to make our way there. Me and Quirky can't remember that walk to get into the back of the car. By all accounts, I set out at the OIC sat in the front of the car. We dives in, and we're both lying down flat in the back of the car, and the OIC, the officer in command of the job, he looks around and says, "You all right, lads?" And I turn round, by all accounts, because I can't remember, and I go, at that point, the OIC shits himself. He's onto the emergency services to see whether or not we need to come in, and whether or not we can be addicted to heroin on the first hit. Luckily, we were okay. We had to take a couple of days off the job. Banging headache after about 5 hours, and we both came round. But a couple of days later, we're back in there, back dealing. Oh, they were back out. We were back buying drugs in Blackpool. So yeah, that was a bit of an experience, really.
It sounds it, mate. It sounds the stuff that you're trying to take away from the streets, you end up a bit wasted on it because of a situation like that.
Yeah. So I then did a number of jobs. So I did a job in Skelmersdale in Sken, and that's a difficult place to be. A lot of Scousers there. They've got their head screwed on. The criminals in and around Liverpool, they're just a different breed. They're just they're switched on. They're switched on to you. And don't forget, I've got Yorkshire accent. Going into places where they've all got a Liverpool accent, Scouse accent. It was difficult places to go. Went from there, went to Highton, did one in Highton. I went to Birmingham, did another one there. Birmingham, God, that was really easy. It was so easy. I remember walking through I forgot where it's called. Lascelles, I think it is, in or something similar. And I was actually walking to go to do a job, and I was approached by by a bloke says, "Do you want to buy some gear?" They'd seen me and realised I looked like a user, and they were straight on top of me. And he said, "I've got some now." So he was smoking a cigarette. So I thought, well, why not? I will do. So I thought, I didn't have the support team around me, but I thought, right, well, how can I link or evidence this lad, this dealer, to a bag of heroin, which it was. So he was smoking. I says, "Well, hey, do you mind if I have a drag of your smoke?" And he went, "You can have it, mate." So he gave me it. Anyway, I give him £10. I got the heroin, put that away, and then straight. I didn't take the drag. He walked away. I put that out, and then I had a little plastic bag in my pocket. I always used to carry one, and I put it out, put it in there. Anyway, they got the dealer on DNA, and convicted him of supply to me that once, which was, yeah, it's a bit of quick thinking on your feet. Again, it's coming back to milk bringing, bit of common sense, thinking about it, and yeah. So in total, I did 115 dealers in 3 years as being an undercover officer. So yeah, it was without doubt one of the best times. But I used to have to go see a psychiatrist regularly, probably every 6-7 weeks, to make sure that mentally I was sort of like stable. I mean, people don't think I'm stable now, so I don't know what they thought then. So yeah. So
it doesn't sort of seem like the sort of thing that can be ongoing for a lot of years, actually doing the job on the coalface. Seems like a lot.
I realised that. Yeah. That sort of like, yeah. I mean, I got to a point where I thought to myself, no, I've got to stop. I'm good. There's going to be a time that because there's no county line, there's no county borders. There's going to be a time where I'm potentially, because don't forget, I have to go to court and give evidence. Even though I'm behind screens, the people that I put behind bars eventually going to get out, and they move around. So there would be a time eventually where I'll walk into a room in a house where potentially they would recognise me.
Yeah.
And we were dealing with some. The drug dealers were always drug users themselves. So there were volatile people, and the people that were around them were volatile and violent people that I were dealing with. So it wouldn't surprise me if I would have been stabbed minimum if I'd have been found out in one of the drug dens. So it was a case of no. It was I'll put me pissed up drug using clothes in its bag, and I burnt them in a ceremony. I said, right, that's it. I've done 115, which was no mean thing.
Yeah, that's amazing, mate.
Yeah, and then I moved on. I moved on to doing quite a lot of surveillance. Then became a surveillance officer and surveillance instructor, and then I worked on the counter-terrorism unit, just in and around 7/7, and yeah, it sounds a really glam job, that, but working with MI5 and that sort of thing, going all over the country at a drop of a hat. We were a regional unit, so we were actually based at Chester House, which was the old police station, which overlooked the best football team in England, something called Old Trafford. So it was overlooking there, and so I had 2 years on there. But like I said, it sounds really glamorous, but actually you spent probably 90% of your time sat in a car, not moving, because we are looking at sleeper cells, and that's exactly what they are. They're potential terrorist threats through intelligence, and they're living in the community, and they may be living in the community 5-6 years, and sometimes intelligence suggests that, you know, there's a heightened awareness of that person. So we move on to various targets throughout the northwest and further afield. And 9 times out of 10, you know, they're very rarely the person who you're working on never really moves from the house. So it was more about trying to remain covert in predominantly Asian areas, which is difficult to do. So that was my time in there. I mean, I did work on. There is one that's gone to court, so I can talk about it. There was one in Birmingham, and a terrorist cell were looking at beheading a British soldier in and around Birmingham, and I was one of the officers there that worked on one of the surveillance teams there, and it was full of surveillance teams in Birmingham, all following various targets. And there was a number of individuals got convicted of terrorist offences, and we spent 4 months in and around sort of like the Curry Mile area of Birmingham, and we stayed. We were staying in the city centre. We had we had a fictitious company. We nobody knew we were police officers. We had credit cards in the name of the company. Every time we went for a meal, everything was on credit card, and and nobody knew who we were. What was funny is we obviously got time off. I remember we was on Broad Street in Birmingham, and we had about 14 hours off, which was unusual. So we decided to go out and have a few beers. So we went to, there's a 1980s Reflex bar on Broad Street. So there was about 10 undercover officers, all sat around having a few beers, and we never sat together. We used to sat, because obviously we don't want to be seen all together, because obviously we work together. So we have to go out in small pockets, but we all ended up in this Reflex. And in the centre there was a dance floor, and we sat there. Next minute, who would walk in? And it was around that time that Peter Crouch was in the England team, and he was doing the robot and all that. And he walks in, with a number of other people. Next minute, Peter Crouch is upside down on this plumbing, on this dance pole in the middle of the Reflex. And unbeknown to him, there's 10 UC undercover blooming police officers all sat around him from the counter-terrorism unit, watching him. If he'd have known that, I don't think he'd have done that, but it's quite funny. So I remember it. What a guy, by the way.
Yeah, he's good crack. It's Crouchy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Mate, you could probably go on about that all day. It sounds really interesting, amazing, and it really does. But we'll get to it. We'll have a follow up on that at some point. But just want to move on to sort of the endurance stuff.
Okay. Yeah. So if you remember, so during lockdown came, and if you all remember, being the 1st Battalion Duke of Wellington's regiment, 33rd 76. Well, I was the same regiment as Sir Tom Moore, the elderly ex-officer who did all the walking in his back garden, raised millions. So it was at that point, being in the same regiment as him, I thought, well, you know, he's inspired me here a little bit. What can I do? So I was obviously, I was quite good at running. I was all right boxing, but I was too old to do any sort of boxing now. My gloves are well and truly have gone. So I decided to, during lockdown 1, to run 33 miles. So obviously in recognition of the 33rd to 76th Club. I did the 33 miles, didn't do much fitness actually for that. I wish I did. So I ran from Blackpool Tower, basically towards Burscough, which is towards just past Southport, and towards Liverpool. I got a hell of a lot of support in relation to that, and but the last 10 miles were excruciating, and that was mainly down to myself not doing enough fitness. And I thought, that's it now. But then all the lads, and we were doing it for the Army Benevolent Fund at that time. And then I got quite a lot of lads then saying, no, you've got to, if you're doing 33, you've got to do 76. So we decided to do 76 miles. So I got a support team around me, all ex-Dukes, and we had a support van, 2 ex-Dukes there. We had some guys in an open Jeep, and ex-Dukes, and then we had a good friend of mine who does all my media, and called John Edmonds, Little Eddie, down in Stoke, and he came up and he did all the videoing and editing and did all that, and yeah, and we did 76 miles running from Blackpool Tower all the way to Halifax, which is the home of the regiment, in Halifax. And it's also, we've got a new memorial there, the Duke's Memorial, so it was fitting to run to that. So we ran, and actually ran into Bradford, so I ran past Halifax in effect, and came back on a loop, and ran past the estate that I was brought up on, and all people from my estate came down. And then we had lots of friends that are in Bradford, and veterans that were in Bradford joined me the last leg of the run to Halifax, and I was met by about 200 people there in Halifax, and the regimental standards was there, and yeah, it was pretty awesome, that. So then moving on from that, I thought, well, what else can I do? So I decided to go and do the Catamaran Yomp, which is the Benevolent Fund. It's up in the Cairngorms. So I did that a couple of years back, and when I was an instructor way back, a good friend of mine, Roy Glendinning, who became a captain, he now works at Fulwood Barracks, and he got in touch with me and said, do you want to go do this Catamaran Yomp with me? So I said, yeah, go on. So we ended up doing that, which is 54 miles up and down Dale. You've got 24 hours to do it. So I went round with the team, and I got to, there's various checkpoints, one of them silver, which is 36 miles. And I was feeling good, and I thought, right, I'm going to run the last 18 miles. So I ran the last 18 miles just to get back, so I could get some sleep, really. I enjoyed that so much, and I thought, right, well, the following year, I'm going to really, really go for it and see what I can do. So I really trained for it. I went on a strict diet. I went on a keto diet. So that I didn't need to take any food in during the run, because my body fat was going to be my food that I was going to be eating in effect. All I needed to drink was supplements. So I trained for about 6 months for that, and I was fortunate enough then. The weather was on my side. It was just nice. It was dry. It was cool, and yeah, I ended up. It's been running 13 years, so I went and beat course records. So I did that in 9 hours 50, which, yeah, so that's still the record for that. Not that I did it for the record, but I just wanted to prove to myself, and also to people, other veterans, that, you know, if you put your mind to something, you can do whatever you want, really. So we did that. So I did, yeah. So that then brought me up to last year, when we decided to run John O'Groats to Land's End. We was gonna so we're gonna do that in 17 days. We're doing 55 mile a day, starting off at John O'Groats, and then making our way down across the country, running down, and the actual route actually brings you right past my house in Leyland, actually.
Oh, right.
So which was nice. So yeah, I was going to come all the way down, and we was going to get to to Land's End, 17 days with the same team that I've followed me through, all the veterans. Unfortunately, on day 5, day 4, I got an injury that I couldn't come back from. And my foot swelled up, looked like I'd got a stress fracture. So unfortunately, I had to stop on day 5. Well, it was a couple of miles into day 5, but I did 226 miles. I ran in the 4 days, and so I still did a hell of a lot. Still 2 marathons a day in effect. But you know, it happens. I'm 55 years old. You know, you're going to pick up injuries. Anybody can pick up injuries, especially doing that sort of distance. But I will go again. So that brought me on now to this year. So I got, because my body's decided to say to me, you need to slow down. I've got an injury on my right knee now. I need to have an operation, which is actually next week, on Friday, to shave some of my meniscus down, because I'm having a lot of trouble running, a lot of pain in my knee. So I decided, well, what can we do for charity this year? So that brings us nicely on to the I Am Duke Music Festival. So I think it's the first festival that I can see, I might be wrong, which is in support of veterans. So it's a music music festival for veterans, in support of veterans. So we have 12 bands that are playing. It's a full weekend. It's from the 1st to the 3rd of September this year in Leyland. We have 12 bands playing on the Saturday. We have 7 DJs playing on the Friday night, and you can camp all the way from Friday to Sunday. We have a beer tent. You need a beer tent if it's anything to do with the army. We have a gin and prosecco bar for the ladies and gentlemen. We have food stalls, various food stalls. Obviously, anything from vegan to hog roast, artisan pizza, hot pot. And some of these lads who are coming are actually veterans from the Dukes who are setting these stalls up. We also have some craft stalls as well. And again, these are veterans that have left the army and then decided to set up something. So I've got a good friend of mine called Jimmy Allett. He was in the Dukes with me. He does arts and crafts. He's a wood carver, and he makes the most stunning regimental badges. Never seen anything like it. They're amazing. He sells them all across the world. He's coming with that. We have a lad who I served with right at the beginning of my career in the Dukes. He now makes cider, so he's got a cider store. So I wanted to try and get people, veterans, who's moved on and done something other than following on from their army career, to come to the festival. I don't want any money from them. None of the bands have actually. They're all given the time free, which is absolute amazing. It's fantastic. So you can see the support that I've had in relation to it. We've got all sorts of genre of music. We've got right at the beginning, we've got a 1940s like We'll Meet Again. That it starts off with air raid sirens. They're going to come. Hopefully, we've got the Northwest Veterans drummers. They're going to come and open to start off with, followed by the 1940s. But then straight in after that, we've got rock, we've got punk, we've got indie, we've got pop, we've got northern soul. We've got a great couple of bands right at the end of the night. Our headliner on the Saturday is called Park and Monkeys. They come from Blackpool. An awesome band that do like all the festival I liked Oasis, Coldplay, Pulp, that sort of band. They'll be last on. They'll go down the storm. We've got a band that. So we had a reunion, army reunion. We had 2 army reunions in Halifax per year. So one was in April. While I was there, I saw a really good indie band called Keegan and Harrison, and two young lads. And again, the indie band. I went up to them afterwards, said, "Look, we're over in Lancashire. Well, I've got this music festival. Would you mind?" They jumped in it straight away. They're going to come. They don't want any money for any petrol or anything like that. They're going to come. They're going to storm the show. I'm sure. But we've got like a 1980s New Romantics band as well, and so they'll play all the 80s sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Actually, it's going to be something different. All the money will go towards the Veterans Charity, which this year is going to be the Army Benevolent Fund, which I really like the Army Benevolent Fund because they sort of like, they support currently about 70,000 people, not just veterans, but veterans families, any age. That can be that, you know, it can be anybody from a baby all the way through to 90. But I like their motto, really, that they and this will ring true with quite a lot of Army veterans, is the fact that they want to give people, they don't want to give people, they want to give people a hand up, not a handout. Now that rings quite a lot, you know, with veterans, because they don't want handouts. They just want, sometimes they just want a little bit of a hand up, and a bit of a help up. Because they're proud people, they're proud that you know, they don't talk about anything that's going on in their lives generally. They just tend to, it's like the man up, you know, like we used to do, that we had to do. They don't speak about the feelings and get help. So I like the fact that the ABF do sort of like instill in people that, don't, you know, this is not for free. You know, you've got to help yourself, but we'll help you if you're going to help yourself, which I think that's a really good sort of like philosophy, that. So that's the reason why we're doing it for the Army Benevolent Fund this year. £30 a ticket the full weekend, including camping. I don't think that's bad. Kids can come for 20 quid for the full weekend. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. That this year, this is going to be, it might be the start of something special. You know, next year you might be calling me Michael Eavish. You never know.
Well, to be honest, mate, it sounds like something that could really explode for here. Everything you said there sounds absolutely amazing, and it's for a great cause. I done the catering yomp myself last week, and fair play to you, mate, for doing that in like under 10 hours. That there was a hill probably just before 50 miles. It went on for about fucking 10 miles. So fair play to you for that, mate. And
is that the one on? Is that the metal road? It was the
the one that never ended.
That's the one that got me, and that gets. I mean, I couldn't run that. I had to speed march it up the hill, right? And the expletives as I'm going up that hill, because you're right, it just never disappeared. It just, I thought when you reach a crest of a hill and you think that's it, and there was just another one and another one, and I was swearing all the way up that. It was horrendous. So I'm with you on that hill. That was that's probably the hardest hill of the lot, actually, I found.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of them end. That one just kept going. And I think I was doing it about maybe 4 in the morning, so I was thinking, am I actually hallucinating here? I didn't actually know if it was ever going to end. Where can you get the tickets for the festival, Eddie?
Yeah, well, if you want to go, I've got 2 things. You can go on my Facebook page, and you can either go on mine, which is Eddie Towler. If you go on Facebook and get Eddie Towler, add me as a friend. I've got no issue with giving my phone number out for anybody who wants it. They can speak to me. Or if you go on Facebook, if you go the Iron Jew, that again will come to my Facebook page. the ING Facebook page. And also, if you want to get tickets direct, you go to www.eddietowler. That's IE, so it's EDDIE Towler TOWLER.com. If you go on there, it'll have a bit of a write up there in relation to why we're doing it, what we want to achieve from it. We've got an ambassador coming from the ABF who has been helped by, he's a veteran who's been helped by the ABF. He's going to come and speak for 10-15 minutes on how it affected, what affected the ABF have had on his life, and how it changed and turned his life around. You know, I'm one of the lucky ones. I have not suffered with PTSD or touchwood mental health, and I think quite a lot. The reason behind that is because, first of all, I'm very much a positive person, and we're all different. I try and keep myself fit. I think fitness is massive in keeping your mental sort of like fitness. I also sort of like, I keep myself busy. Unfortunately, you know, you do have sort of little dips. I can see we're not doing my fitness. I sort of had a little dip, and so I had to sort of like say, well, I need something in my life to make me feel, you know, to do something. So I'm doing the Iron Music Festival, but I also wrote a book this year, which you've got a copy of to critique when you get round to it, which you know, which will go, basically it goes through my life, which I've just spoke about. It wasn't meant to be, well, it was about me, but it was meant for my kids. My kids don't know what we did when I was in the army, didn't know what I did when I was in the police, and I wanted them to know a little bit about you know, because all they see is dad when dad comes home and messing about and this, that, and the other. So they never saw another side of me, and so I just wanted to put that down. So yeah, so you got to. I just try and be a positive person. So I just, yeah. So that's it in a nutshell, really, with the ING Music Festival and everything that I've tried to do this year and up to now. We've raised £9,000 so far and it wasn't just for the Army Benevolent Fund. So while I was in the this is quite spooky, actually. There's 350 lads I dealt with probably about 200 lads within the Dukes over the time, you know, when I was in the regiment, and 8 of them have got MS, which is the ratio of 200 Dukes and 8 of them having MS is it's quite spooky. It's not right. So some of my charity events have been for MS as well. Another one was NND. So I had a good friend. He was in the police with me. Unfortunately, he succumbed to NMD and died a couple of years ago. So we also did. We also ran on behalf of him. We got some money for the NND Society as well. So, you know, I try and keep it current. The Army Benevolent Fund obviously is close to my heart. So this year, that's where the money is going for the ING Music Festival. Anybody wants to get involved, they can do. We still want volunteers. We still need marshals. If anybody knows anywhere, we need a big marquee. I've got to look at a wet weather programme. I don't want to spend money because I want the money to go to the charity. So if anybody's got a marquee, that'd be massive. That we're trying to get a marquee and lighting for the whole event. We have people who've come to us and said, look, we'll provide lighting, but they are not charging a lot, but I still want to try and get the generosity of the public and companies out there to come and help me. If we've got a sponsor would be awesome, because if we had a sponsor, which, you know, we'll put on all our social media, we'll also put it above the the stage. You know, if we had a sponsor coming on board, we'd give them 50 tickets for their staff or families to come to the festival. But also that money then will go, because not everything can be given free. You know, the staging and stuff like that. You know, a lot of that. You know, a lot of their business will be to do with charity events. So you can't expect them to do it for nothing. So you know, we do have an outlay that we have to pay. So I want to try and get as much of that back. So if we could get a sponsor on board, again, that would be awesome. It really would.
Well, let's hope this video helps, Eddie. And honestly, mate, everything that you're trying to do for the ABF, MND, MS, everything, mate, is absolutely amazing. So, as in, you're quite clearly a very charitable guy who likes to give a bit back, mate, and that's amazing as well. Obviously, MND is massive at the moment with everything that's going on with it, and it's getting a lot more sort of coverage that it wasn't getting in previous years. So hopefully that helps with that.
Yeah.
Eddie, so we're going to wrap up there, mate. That is absolutely amazing hearing your journey from growing up in Bradford. I'll try and say it the right way. Bradford, right through to where you've got to today, mate, and everything you do for charity. It's absolutely amazing. Anything that you've said here today, like charities and stuff like that, we'll link it all together when we put this out. We'll drop links in there for you as well.
Super.
When I share it on my Facebook pages, I'll do the exact same. I'll put the links in and stuff like that. And we'll talk about offline, and we'll get all that together as well. Anything you want in there, we'll just add it on there, mate. And the more exposure we get for this event and everything else you do is absolutely amazing, mate. So finally, as I always say at the end of my shows, anybody who has got a story to tell, feel free to get in touch and come on to Taba, tell all, buy all, and please give this one a listen. It's absolutely amazing. So Eddie, thank you very much for your time this morning. It's well appreciated, mate. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, like I said, anybody wants to help, anybody wants to come on, just get tickets though. That would support me immensely. All right, yeah, come along to this event, please, because you know, that's the way to support it. But also, you're going to have a great time. Thank you.
Can't ask for any more than that, Eddie.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.